Lately, I have just gotten really tired of influencers being on my feed telling me that I need to buy products in order to achieve some kind of happiness or fix problems that I might be experiencing in my life. And I am wanting to just move away from that kind of content and live a more intentional lifestyle. Hi, I'm Monica, and today in this video we're going to be exploring what it means to live more intentionally or mindfully, and what does that mean to me, and how do I do that practically in my life. For me, when I think about living more mindfully, a lot of it does come down to consumption. I have been trying to transition the way that I view activities like shopping and overconsumption. Really, in the past few years, I've been trying to make that transition. And honestly, it's kind of difficult because we're bombarded every day with advertisements to buy things that maybe we don't need or maybe don't actually have a practical place in our lifestyle. But we're pressured to do that because maybe it's a trend or it's just something that you might find attractive in the moment, but it actually doesn't serve you in your life. So definitely part of that is overconsumption. For me, being intentional is also just being more mindful about things that I am buying on the day-to-day. Another thing that I think about too is getting back into some creative hobbies. When I was younger, in like middle school, high school, I did a lot of reading, a lot of drawing, painting. I love any kind of craft that I can do with my hands, like crochet is one that I was doing at a certain point in time and haven't picked that one up for many years. So it's a lot about slowing down, trying to appreciate what makes you happy in life, brings you joy. And in 2026, that is absolutely something that I'm trying to continue to work towards and embrace in my life. Now, let's talk about what I am letting go. And for me, that is letting go of excess things that don't bring me joy. So, for example, I am probably a recovering shopaholic at this point. That used to be a main fun activity for me, is going to the mall, looking at what new things are around for all the different seasons, new clothes, new bags, things like that. I was very drawn to doing that as a source of fun and entertainment. It also didn't stop there. I would shop online when I wasn't at the mall and in my downtime, just browsing online, after being served ads on Instagram and checking out the products, and then doing exploration on my own, or thinking I needed to buy something and then putting all of this time and effort into researching items to purchase and then ordering them, and then in a lot of cases ending up returning them. And it was just a cycle that continued, and in the moment gave me some level of, I think this is making me happy, but in reality, it didn't bring me any kind of true joy or satisfaction or contentment. So I really decided that's something that I want to let go. Shopping for the sake of shopping, shopping for the sake of, this is filling my time and this is something that I think my brain thinks is releasing dopamine, so I am wanting to participate in that. That is something that I am actively wanting to let go. Another big one within the shopping landscape is logos. So there was a point in time as well when I was shopping for designer items, and I thought that designer items like Louis Vuitton bags or other high-end luxury designers would make me happy. And in reality, it didn't. I bought a lot of designer bags at a certain point in time and ended up selling all of them except for recently in 2024, I went to Spain. I purchased a Louis Vuitton Neverfull bag because I thought I wanted to get back into designer bag collection at that point in time. And then I remember before making that purchase specifically, I had kind of told myself that I'm not going to buy designer bags anymore in the United States, but if ever I go on a trip to Europe, I thought that would be a fun way to celebrate the trip, bring back a souvenir, especially because in Europe, prices are cheaper than they are back in the States for luxury designer items. So when I went to Spain in Barcelona, I thought it would be a really great thing to buy. But I remember the night before specifically, we were going to go out and buy the bag. I remember having a lot of anxiety about the purchase, questioning if that was something that I actually wanted to buy, if it would actually serve me in my life. So the seeds for this transition and this realization were happening a couple of years ago, but at the time I was so conditioned to spending my money on things that I thought that I would want to buy and have in my life forever. And I was more so guided by that mindset than really stopping and thinking critically about, does this actually have a place in my life? Is this something that I actually want, or am I buying it because I was conditioned to buy things for so long and I, may have had regrets about selling it at a certain point in time and wanted to buy it back? All of these things were kind of coming in to my mind as I was contemplating this decision, and of course in the moment I ended up wanting to go out and buy it. I mean, with that bag, I also didn't really end up using it. In 2024, after I bought it, I maybe used it 5 times. And, that in itself is shameful. I feel bad for putting all of that effort into, one, saving the money, and then just spending it on something that I wasn't actually using or enjoying. I made my husband stand out in the rain with me, and he was such a good sport about it, but luxury shopping and spending all of my hard-earned money is probably the last activity that he ever wants to participate in, but he was a good sport and he knew that I wanted it, so he supported me in the moment. So anyway, enough about logos, but that is something that I am wanting to transition away from, and is definitely a big part of intentional living, and specifically intentional consumption for me, that I have been conditioned to do the opposite for so long. Impulse buying, seeing products online, seeing influencers say all of this amazing stuff about something and promote it, and not actually have the foresight or intention in my decision making to justify owning those items. So in with that was also trend chasing, thinking that I needed to dress a certain way, or wear the cool girl item, whether that is a black leather jacket or a specific type of shoe or the newest dress at Aritzia or Nordstrom. And so a lot of that is something that I want to let go. Also, just the time and space that overconsumption took place in my life. That also includes the time that I spent doomscrolling, looking at all of these different things and watching other people live their lives while I was sitting on the couch, but not actually doing anything that would cultivate joy in my own life. For me, these are all habits that I am actively working towards moving away from, and represent a mindset of intentional living and mindfulness that I know is going to benefit my life in every possible way. Now, with all of that said, I am by no means perfect in any of this. It is truly transitional for me, moving away from a mindset of overconsumption and wanting to have the next best thing to figuring out what I actually use now that I have bought all of these things, what actually fits into my lifestyle, what actually makes me happy, calm, comfortable, what is giving me a life that makes sense and I'm excited about. And if you're interested in any or all of those things, I am very excited to have you here and have you join me on this journey of mine. So, okay, we've talked about what am I letting go as part of an older version of myself that maybe wasn't living as mindfully as I wanted to be. So then what am I moving towards? What are the types of things or activities that I want to be absorbing more into my life to live more mindfully and be at peace with myself in this chaotic, overwhelming world of overconsumption and seeing things on the feed and being influenced in so many ways. A big one for me that I am moving towards is all natural fibers. So this is kind of a huge revelation for me. Before, I was dressing in a way that I thought was my style, but in reality, it's a way that I was dressing because everybody else dressed that way. I am looking at you, skinny jeans right now, and Madewell t-shirts, and none of that felt uniquely me. I didn't feel necessarily special wearing any of those things, and I definitely felt like I was dressing to, in a way, please the masses, which sounds really weird to say it like that, but at the same time, it's how everybody else dresses, so I should be dressing that way too in order to fit in and be accepted and have other people compliment my outfit. In the height of my shopping era, my favorite thing to buy, and still is in some ways, was handbags. I love handbags. I was buying a lot of trending bags, things that were just on the shelves and looked cute, but I wasn't actually paying a lot of attention to the materials that were being used. Having a bag look kind of ratty or gross after a little bit really deeply bothers me. I am the kind of person that I like the things that I own to look really nice. I don't always love the lived-in look. I really admire people that have the same handbag and they use it forever and it brings them so much joy. I think that is so admirable in a way, and I'm wanting to work towards that, but I have always habitually purchased multiple bags when I probably only need one. And I think I'm getting closer to that more minimal approach to my handbag shopping. And I do have some tips and tricks for that. Not tips and tricks, that sounds very clickbaity. I just mean some level of advice that I have taken to heart that does make me more intentional about spending money on handbags, because I'm really evaluating if this is actually working for me, does it fit into my life, and all of that good stuff. So, with all of that rambling, something that I have learned about myself and the types of materials that I love when I'm considering purchasing a new handbag is it has to be vegetable tan leather. Chrome dyed leather is probably what most leather bags are made of by most brands. So you really have to do careful research if you want to figure out what types of materials are actually being used for the construction of bags. Chrome dyed leathers are just not as good for the environment. I also find that the quality of the leather isn't as great, whereas vegetable tan leather will patina beautifully over time. It gains more character Another the biggest type of material that I'm a proponent of is full grain leather, whereas most designers will sell you a top grain leather and market it as something that is high quality. I'm talking about Coach, new Coach. And I say new Coach because there is also vintage Coach, which did use full grain leather. But then you have like your Tory Burch, you have your Kate Spade, all of these different designers that are claiming to be quality and luxury and high end, but in reality they're not actually using quality materials, and they're charging hundreds of dollars for their bags, which I'm just not into anymore. And since I've done my research, I am just not even, there's just no desire for me to even try purchasing those bags again. With the thing that I'm moving towards, the higher quality of materials that I'm looking at whenever I'm considering buying a new handbag is also buying less of them. If I'm going to buy something, it has to be on a wish list for a while before I decide that that's something that I actually want to buy. Before, I was more into the impulse buying approach, where I would see it and buy it and then decide later on if it's something that I wanted to actually keep. That whole approach for me is just out the window at this point, just because I find that it gets very confusing. And when I say you, I mean I have bought things in the past, and then there's a part of you that almost connects to the item. You think it's cute, or oh, this would look so good with this specific outfit, or oh, this is the type of bag that I could bring to this one event, like a wedding or something like that. I'm moving away from that type of ideology where you have the thing in front of you and then you're trying to make it work for your own life, rather than thinking about the practical nature of your life and what are the things that you're doing day in and day out that you would actually need and use this bag for. That's the approach that I'm taking now. And so putting things on a wish list actually is helping me get rid of the noise in that way. There are certain things that I'll put on a wish list, and if I don't think about it at all after putting it on there, and then I'm looking at my wish list like several weeks later and I see that thing on there and I'm like, oh, I forgot all about that. It goes off the wish list. And so that helps me to evaluate and analyze what are the things that actually make sense for me. What's the actual hole that I'm trying to fill, or gap that buying this thing would justify spending this money on, that would actually bring me joy because I am using it and loving it and it makes sense for my life. So that's the thing I'm moving toward, just more conscientious buying, not buying and then returning, and then feeling very confused in all of that process because I'm not entirely sure like if I'm going to keep it or not, or justify whatever it is. Because then I have now sold a lot of bags as well. I have gone through the process of selling many bags that I just bought, ended up not using for many months or even years, and it's time to let them go. And that's been a transitional process. And honestly, I'm pretty proud of myself for even being able to identify that as something that needs to change in my life. But right now, I would say I have a collection of about 20 bags or so, and I am absolutely trying to cut that in half. Another fun thing that I am really excited about moving more towards in my life, and I guess away from, is just making sure that any of the makeup or skincare items that I'm buying are truly non-toxic and not harmful, both to me and also to the planet. This one, I think, can be so convoluted with the concept of clean beauty that certain brands or stores are really pushing on people to, this is a clean beauty item, therefore it's safe for you to use every single day. But then if you actually check the ingredient list, it will contain things like phenoxyethanol, which is a formaldehyde. So things like that, I'm very, very, very conscientious of. There's a couple of apps that I use, really just one in particular, but then I just like to check all of the ingredients and make sure that they are truly non-toxic and actually clean, rather than just blindly believing what a brand is telling me and saying that it's safe for me to use on my skin every single day. And since I've been doing that, I have also just been wearing a lot less makeup. I barely use any right now, and honestly, I find that makes me a lot happier. I don't think that people need to wear all the makeup, and if you're somebody that loves makeup, no judgment here, do what you love, but I really do think that people are more beautiful when they are letting their features shine rather than trying to cover them up with a lot of cakey makeup. I just think that it looks so much worse, and it does really harm your skin over time, because what ends up happening is when you have all of these toxic ingredients that's sitting on your face all day and you're putting so much more product on, it will end up giving you acne. And then as a result, it's just this ongoing cycle where you're trying to cover up the acne, but then it gives you more acne. So it's kind of like this vicious cycle where it's hard to then go cold turkey and cut out all of the bad product, because you may have a skin condition that you're maybe a little embarrassed about. And I have gone through that. In college, I had some really horrible breakouts and acne that I was so embarrassed if somebody saw me without makeup on, and that was, that's an emotional thing. So I totally understand it from that regard, but I do think that if you can make a transition to less makeup and all natural makeup and skincare, it's the way to go, because you'll just, I think, from my experience, I have felt better when I stopped trying to buy all of these different products. And also, your wallet will thank you, because even though makeup doesn't seem like an expensive purchase in the moment, it might be like a $25 lip gloss, but then you add up all of those tiny items and it actually can amount to hundreds of dollars. So another thing that I'm doing to try to just be a little bit more grounded in my life is with the whole overconsumption thing. I am trying to follow less influencers who are actually promoting that. So it's like a weird type of cleanse that I've been doing. Sometimes if an influencer's content will pop up, I will actually think about what I'm seeing in front of me, and if it's something that gives me like a little red flag, I don't know how to explain that. For example, I was following this one influencer, and her whole thing, like so many, is, this is the bag that I have, this is the outfit that I'm wearing. And I just found that in the moment that I caught myself mid-scroll, I thought to myself, well, this doesn't really align with what I want anymore, and I don't really want to see it anymore. I don't really want that to be part of my ecosystem that I'm surrounding myself in. So rather than letting it stay there and continuing to see this person's content about buying things that I personally don't need, I decided to unfollow. And I'm sorry to that influencer if it means less follows or whatever it means for that person. I don't really know how content creation works right now, but it didn't serve me in my life anymore to see the types of content that are actually being promoted and don't align with my values anymore. So that is kind of like a cleanse that I also feel good about, because now the algorithm, I'm teaching it that type of content doesn't resonate with me, and so it will then suggest things that do resonate more with me, and that makes me feel good. And now that I'm spending less time actually doom scrolling, which is something that I am still probably guilty of, like I said, it's a process, and I'm still transitioning away from this is what I do in the evenings after work to trying to be more mindful and figuring out things that actually make me happy. And it is a process. It is definitely a period of growing for me that I am trying really hard to harness in my life, but it can be hard. It can be tough to be mentally active after a long day of work. So that is developing hobbies. Some things that I have been trying to do lately that do bring me a lot of joy is sketching in my sketchbook. Reading is another one that I used to love reading. I majored in writing, and reading and writing go hand in hand for me. So that was something that I had a very deep interest in. And once I entered the workplace and started working 9 to 5, all of that kind of fell apart, and I wasn't engaging in that side of my life and my interests anymore. A lot of that just fell to the wayside as I tried to learn how to be an adult and work for the first time in my life, and meal prep and do all of these things to make my day-to-day life easier, and I definitely let go of the hobbies. But I've been trying to make it more of a focus in my life now, because it is something that genuinely makes me happy and brings me joy, and it's something that doom scrolling will never be able to do for me. I might get those glimmers of dopamine, but then it's gone after I scroll past it. So I am trying to not abuse my brain in that way anymore, and trying to just really embrace the fact that I am a creative person, and even though that side of my life has been dormant for many years, I can still pick it back up, and I can still pursue things that bring me joy, make me happy, and that's absolutely a focus for me in 2026. And the last one that I'll mention, because I could probably talk about this for too long, but the last one that I'll mention that has really, really been a focus for me is making a lot more homemade everything, specifically food. So instead of getting something to go and, picking up food for takeout and eating out so often, which I was doing a lot of as well, it was a fun thing to, and it still is a fun thing, to go out to a restaurant and eat, or if I'm too tired during the week and I don't want to cook, just going to a taco shop and getting a burrito, something quick and easy. I'm doing a lot less of that, and this has been a trend for me that I really started and activated in 2025. So I've been more in the routine of opting to make it home rather than opting for the easy, quick thing, which is buying out. So something that I made recently that I'm super excited about is I learned how to make French butter, and it was actually a lot easier than it sounds. I don't think there is a world in the last 32 years where I thought, oh, you can just make your own butter. Like, that thought never occurred to me until I did see somebody on TikTok making their own fresh butter. And, I'm not somebody that is going to say all of social media is bad, because it's not. A lot of the time when I go on TikTok, I'm learning a new thing. And yes, a lot of it is also consumption, but if you're trying to follow the right accounts and teach the algorithm what you actually resonate with, then I find that sometimes it is a gold mine for learning new things. And I'm really, really happy that French butter is now a part of my life, because I'm literally never going to buy butter at the store again. I might buy like an emergency butter just in case I can't get to making it, but I am so revolutionized in that way that like that simple change, it tastes so much better. I know that it's better for me. The way it melts is better. Like it just melts in your mouth. And that's like kind of crazy. Like from the fridge to on a piece of bread to melt in your mouth, which I'm sorry, but store-bought butter could never. And so things like that. In 2026, I am committed to also learning how to make bread. And I have made white bread before, but I have been on this pseudo sourdough journey for a long time. And what I mean by that is I have nurtured a starter and used discard in some of my recipes that I found, but I've never actually gone through the process of baking a sourdough bread. And now my starter has just been sitting in my fridge for months now. So I have to figure out that. That is like a mindset shift, whatever. I don't know. There's some barrier to entry for me that I am not confident maybe in pursuing this sourdough journey yet. But it is for 2026. It's something that I want to do. If I don't get to, no, I will get to making sourdough in 2026. I will do it. But I also want to make other types of bread that doesn't require the laborious process that sourdough does. So the whole grain breads as well is something that I really want to do, and milling my own flour. So things like that. And I know that that's not for everybody. Life definitely gets busy. I am speaking from a position of I don't have kids right now, so that is on the horizon for me, but it's not something that is part of my day-to-day life that I am actively worried about. So I am letting myself experiment with the free time that is a luxury. I know that, many people don't have that luxury of time that you can experiment for things like that, but right now I have it. So I am trying to exist in that world where I'm also making it a priority to learn how to do these things so that they become habits later on in my life when life does get too busy for me to actually sit down and think about experimenting for dinner. But that's something that's been really important for me as well. Well, that is all for today's video. I hope that you found it helpful or inspirational maybe, I don't know, or maybe just a little bit motivating to make a change towards living a more intentional life. If you're here and you've made it this far, that's obviously something that you are interested in pursuing for yourself. So I am excited for you on your journey as well. And I will be making more videos on this topic. Basically, all of my videos will be tied to intentional living or mindfulness in some regard that is hopefully practical as well. But anyway, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!